Following the passing of Senate Bill 571, Mayor Bryan K. Barnett spoke in opposition of the bill at a press conference hosted by the Michigan Municipal League and urged Governor Snyder to veto the bill. If signed, this bill will not allow government agencies to use public resources to educate the public regarding proposals on the ballot 60 days prior of the election.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Mayor Riley. I stand with the mayor and the other colleagues and friends here today in opposition to Senate Bill 571 for many of the reasons that the mayor mentioned. And not only do I represent the 75,000 folks that live in my community of Rochester Hills, but over the last 48 hours, we've garnered a coalition of our Rochester Hills Public Library, our Rochester Hills Community Schools, the Rochester Hills Older Persons Center, and the Rochester Avon Recreation Authority, all organizations that have gone to the voters in the past few years to ask for support for various ballot proposals, oftentimes very confusing proposals, all detrimentally affected by what we see in Senate Bill 571. I would also note that I'm a Republican representing a relatively conservative community, and perhaps a different voice from others represented here today. In our community over the last 4 years, 7 times we've gone to the voters to ask for proposals and for their consideration on various measures. Only one has been a tax increase. Most of them have been a conservative community looking to manage its finances in a different way, looking to repurpose monies that were once for a source that was a priority that are now needed elsewhere. There are proposals that are confusing, that require detailed explanation. Governmental accounting is not intuitive. It is challenging. It requires explanation, as those behind me can understand. If you ever looked at a ballot proposal, what goes actually on the ballot is very regulated. It is legalese. It is how much, when it starts and when it ends, and how much it raises. And so the information that creates the fabric and the reason and the purpose for that question often needs to be colored in by discussion created oftentimes by the organization bringing forth the request. We in our community and in those organizations that I'm representing today have followed the law. We've used the resources that have been allocated to us in a way that's appropriate. And we've informed our voters. All of those measures have passed overwhelmingly on Election Day. And what our strong concern is that in the very vague language of Senate Bill 571, none of those ways and resources would be potentially allowed in the future. As mentioned, we also use YouTube. We use our cable access channel. We use social media incredibly effectively. And all of those methods, we'd have to research whether or not they would be effective moving forward. If a resident comes up and asks a question about a bill or about an upcoming proposal, can I, as mayor, answer that question on television? Can I respond to a resident asking a question about a millage proposal? It is very concerning. We too have media that cover us, although we, as Mayor O'Reilly mentioned, can't count on them effectively. Our patch reporter covers us from central Iowa. Our local newspaper was abandoned in the recession, and the Oakland Press has 15% of the reporters it had when I became mayor 10 years ago. And just by the sheer nature of the industry, it is much more the likelihood of a Rochester Hills resident to get their information via social media than it is print media. As I mentioned, these proposals are not tax increases, as it appears that the proposer or that the writers of this legislation are most concerned of. Many times, these are active ways that we are looking to repurpose monies already in our budget. And the justification for this provision is anecdotal. Just a couple challenges, just a couple incidences when there are many more people that are using it to educate their voters effectively. Governor Snyder is a good friend of mine and, in my opinion, a good governor. And on behalf of the citizens of Rochester Hills, I urge him to veto Senate Bill 571. The irony of this bill is that it purports to take the transparency high road, but was introduced as anything but. If this is a good discussion and deserves to be law, then it should have a vibrant discussion in the way that most legislation is presented, where all of us can present our concerns about it in the normal public fashion. If true transparency is what we are after, Governor, we should focus on legislation that prohibits the last-second shenanigans that created this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.